If we win regionals, then it's straight on to sectionals. And then a week later is semis, then semi-regionals, then regional semis, then national lower zone semis!
At the start of 2021, Valorant and Riot announced their main esports circuit for the year called the VALORANT Champions Tour. It's pretty ambitious considering Valorant's not even been out a year, but so far it's going pretty well. Viewership's nice, people are interested in the scene, and just as time goes on, more and more people are going to be interested in it as we get to its conclusion in December. But the format is quite complicated, and for new viewers coming in, it feels very Pepe Sylvia when it comes to understanding the context of some games and what these events eventually mean. There's Russian dolls of qualifiers, a qualifier going into a bigger qualifier, going into an even bigger qualifier, that it's no surprise that people can't really get their head around the whole circuit and what it means and what teams are basically playing for. A common question usually is, oh, if Sentinels win this game, does that mean that they go to Iceland? And for the most part, the answer is no, but some people also don't know what Iceland is meant to be and why that's important, basically. So we're going to go over the VALORANT Champions Tour, explaining it in the best detail I can. I say that because I tried starting recording this video when there was daylight outside, and now it's past midnight. It's not going well, but that's kind of explaining the format of this tournament in a nutshell. It's also worth adding that Riot actually put out a bit more information on the Champions Tour with an article, so we'll refer to that, fill in some of the blanks of information that we've had in the past, and also use some really good community-made stuff to better explain the format of the tournament in case you don't know what's going on. The TLDR is it basically breaks down into three main parts of the event: Challengers, Masters, and Champions. That's the straightforward stuff, but usually we'd probably want to start with the open qualifiers and challenges right at the beginning and work our way through. I actually want to start with the end, what these teams are playing for and what it means, and that is the Champions event that'll be happening in December 2021. The reason why I wanted to start with this is because honestly, it's just Worlds. It's League of Legends Worlds, but in Valorant. And most people kind of go, ooh, that sounds cool. But then the follow-up question is, how do teams qualify? How many are coming from each of the regions? Well, the answer to that is it's going to be 16 teams, the best 16 teams in the world. We'll highlight how many come from like North America, Europe, Korea, etc. in a second. But the teams, for the most part at least, will qualify for Champions via circuit points. For those that follow, multiple esports, you kind of know what circuit points mean and the kind of events that give these points that are needed, but we'll really go from an idiot's guide perspective for a lot of people because we need to sort of start from that position, honestly. On screen is basically all of the major events happening throughout the year that will give these teams the points that they need to qualify. I'll also read a snippet from the Valorant website saying that teams who compete in the Challengers playoffs and the Masters events, the ones that are on screen, will earn circuit points based on their performance, winning it, coming 4th, 5th, you all accumulate points. And then at the end of the year, teams earn a spot of champions based on their qualification points rankings within their region. 11 out of the 16 teams will qualify for champions in this way. Don't worry, we'll highlight the other 5 in a second, but this is where 2/3 of the teams at least will earn their spot for the most part. Like the website says, it's broken down into the main regions, and you can see on screen how many of each team from each region will be able to qualify for the Champions event based on points. For those that are just interested in North America, we'll highlight that mostly, not only because the majority of you watching this video will be from America and Canada and the like, but also because it's the easiest to follow. When you talk about Europe, you have to bring in Turkey and CIS, and it just gets a little bit confusing that I don't really want to get into those specifics, at least not yet. So for North America, the two teams that have the most circuit points at the end of the year will qualify for the Champions event. I've actually kind of like created what it might look like, play out the bracket, use a bit of a simulation. And let's say, hypothetically speaking, that it's Sentinels and 100 Thieves that have the most points out of their region. So as you've seen with the leaderboard, they would be the ones that would qualify for the Champions event. Don't worry about the teams below it. We'll highlight that and what the last chance qualifiers are meant to be. But like I said, the main way that these teams will qualify from each of the different regions is to just get the most points that they can across the main stages of the events happening at the moment. And then if they have the most points, they'll go to Champions and try and earn a spot, which again is, the first major winner in Valorant, bragging rights to be the best Valorant team in the world, which is going to do you a huge amount when it comes to people interested in your team. And also, it's Riot. Prize money's pretty big for the previous events at least, so I would imagine it would be the same here. So now we've spoken about the end game of it, right? The big event that people are really aiming for, and right now we're slap bang in the middle of the Hungry Hippo season of all of these teams scrambling to get these circuit points that they need. Now we need to talk about the events that give out these points. You know, this picture that I showed, now we can go into a bit more detail on what the Challengers Finals are, but more specifically, Masters. Right now, we're slap bang in the middle of these main events, and it's broken down into 3 stages, Stage 1, Stage 2, and Stage 3. And in each of those stages, it will have these big events, pretty much, these splits, I guess you could call them, called the Master events. And these are, as you saw with the picture, the main way that teams will accumulate points that they need for the Champions event at the end of the year. So doing well in Masters is kind of a necessity for a lot of these teams. It's also worth adding that these Masters events are going to be international from now on. We are in Stage 2, we've already had Masters 1, but Masters events were meant to be international ones. When you hear people talk about Iceland and Reykjavik, they are talking about Masters 2, where 10 teams from all around the world will travel to Iceland and play on a land for the first time in Valorant's history. It's the first time that we'll see North American teams play up against European teams, playing up against Brazilian teams, Japanese, Korean teams. It's just going to be amazing. It's one of those things that you don't want to miss because it's the first time that we've ever seen these guys not play online, basically, which we can't do at the moment because ping is a pretty big issue for a lot of these teams in a game like Valorant. So playing online is going to be super interesting. So this is a big event, bragging rights to be the best region in the game when people are arguing about it all the time on Reddit. There's a lot going on. The Valorant website says that each of the 3 stages of the VCT are capped off with a global Masters tournament. These are global competitions which see the best teams from around the world compete for circuit points. Teams who have accrued the most circuit points will qualify for champions, as we mentioned. A thing to add as we sort of look over this picture is that Masters 1 was a little different from Masters 2 and Masters 3. Reykjavik is the first international event, but that's Masters 2. Masters 1, I think, was meant to be an international event, but because of COVID and all that stuff and the logistics of traveling currently in the middle of a pandemic, wasn't really feasible at all for a lot of countries. So Riot said that actually Masters 1 are just going to be regional tournaments, hence why we saw in North America Sentinels win it. But you go over to Europe and Ascend have won it, and then you go to Brazil, Team Vikings have won it. There were multiple Masters 1 winners because they were all regionalized, but for Masters 2 and Masters 3, there'll only be one winner because all of the best teams that do well in their qualifications will go to this one event, and then one team from the 10 or 16 teams that will be there will be crowned the winner and get the majority of points and pretty much get their foot in the door for qualifying, to be honest. I think if you win Masters 2, you've pretty much confirmed your placement unless you do really, really badly in like Stage 3 or something. So that's basic brunt of the backbone of what we're currently in at the moment. And now I want to talk about the specific route to Reykjavik to Masters 2 the teams go on. This is where the website is a little bit less than helpful, I'll be honest. Like, I'll read out this paragraph and you'll see what I mean. Now that we're going to talk about challenges and the challenges finals and how teams get from the open qualifiers to something like Iceland, Reykjavik, Masters 2. In the Challengers main events, teams compete for a spot at Challenger playoffs. Teams who make and win the Challengers playoffs will then qualify for the Masters event. It really is like the community joke about Glee, like regionals going to semi-regionals, going to regional semis. It just goes on and on and on. So there's no surprise that people are kind of like, where are we? What are we doing right now? What are we even playing for? So how does a team go from the open qualifiers to Masters 2? If we're going to use the North America example, because again, it's the most straightforward in the scene that most people care about that will be watching this video, it's only 2 teams from North America that will be attending Masters 2. So how are those 2 teams decided? Well, it goes from open qualifiers into 2 Challengers events. Each of these events will have 8 teams in them, and each Challengers will basically promote 4 teams from each to a Challengers final, which will have 8 teams in it. And then in that Challengers final, it will have 2 teams that will qualify for Masters 2. No worries if you didn't understand that. This is what I mean. It's where it gets complicated. So let's actually use the example of what's happened so far, where we are currently, and, simulate the rest of the bracket. So let's say we have Challengers 1. We have the open qualifiers, hundreds of teams play out the bracket, to eventually nail it down to just 8 teams. The NA Open qualifiers for Challengers 1 went and are done, and then we had the teams in NA Challengers 1. These 8 teams were Ambox, Built by Gamers, Immortals, Cloud9, Version 1, Envy, Exet, and 100 Thieves. And out of those 8 teams, 4 teams would make the Challengers finals. Those teams were Version 1, Envy, Exet, and 100 Thieves. So that's Challengers 1 down. All of those teams, 4 went to the Challengers finals. Then we decide the other 4 that will be joining them via Challengers 2. Again, you have the open qualifiers. You have that been broken down into 8 teams again, which are Ambox, Built by Gamers, Immortals, and Cloud9 from the previous Challengers. They get a buy into the next one just by getting to the top 8. This isn't the same in other regions, so I won't touch on that too much, but they were joined via the open qualifiers by TSM, NRG Esports, T1, and Sentinels. FaZe Clan didn't make it, and so they won't be able to earn any points in Stage 2 because they didn't make the Challengers Finals and they didn't make Reykjavik. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So at this point, we know 4 of the teams so far, at the time of recording at least. Let's just say that the 4 teams that qualify through Challengers 2 are TSM, NRG Esports, T1, and Sentinels. So those 4 teams move on up to the Challengers Finals, therefore making our final 8 teams Version 1, Envy, Exet, 100 Thieves, TSM, NRG, T1, and Sentinels. So they are the final 8 teams in North America, and 2 of those will qualify for Reykjavik. For argument's sake, let's just say it's Sentinels and 100 Thieves that win out in that double elimination bracket that get to the grand finals, and they're the ones that will be representing the North American region in Masters 2. Like you saw on the points picture before, even getting to the Challengers Finals does offer a good amount of points. I think it's going to make the difference for some teams, but obviously if you really want to get the mother load of points to book your spot in the qualifiers for champions, you really want to be getting to Masters 2. So that's the main way that teams are going to make their way through it. I will link this picture in the description below. It's super cool. Me and Oid's done such a good job at explaining where we are with some of these teams. But do bear in mind, obviously, a lot of this information might be outdated. So look for the updated version of this bracket. Like, yeah, it's a super cool thing. And I hope that actual explanation of what is happening and where we are currently better enables you to understand what's going on, because all of this in Stage 2 is a little bit different to Stage 1 because of the fact that Stage 1 wasn't an international event, if that makes sense. So yeah, right now we're in the middle of Stage 2. Teams are trying to get a spot booked into Reykjavik to get as many points as they can. Reykjavik will come and go. After that, we'll move into Stage 3, where even if we have Sentinels win the whole event in Masters 2, they will have to come through all of the open qualifiers again, go from the open qualifiers in Challengers to Challengers 1, to maybe Challengers 2, to the Challengers main event, and then eventually to Masters 3, wherever in the world that is. Let's say it's in Grimsby. The international event of Masters 3 is going to be in Grimsby in the north of England because, of course, best place to have an international LAN. So teams will go there, they'll play on LAN, and they'll try and get as many points as they can get. Before we talk about last chance qualifiers, it's worth adding that the winner of Masters 3 immediately qualifies for the Champions event, which is a really nice thing for teams to really aim for, even if they've not scored any points. Let's use the example of G2. G2 haven't got any points on the board right now. They didn't qualify for Masters in Stage 1, and they didn't reach the Challengers Finals or Masters 2 in Stage 2. The points that they have in the circuit is a big fat 0. However, they could go on a monster run in Masters 3, go all the way to the main event in Masters 3 and win it, and it doesn't matter how many points they get. They will just automatically qualify for just doing well in that tournament alone. So there is that last dash attempt for teams to maybe make a good run and maybe earn their spot just off doing well in Masters 3 alone. So 11 teams will qualify for champions via circuit points, just having the most within their regions. Again, 2 teams from North America, 2 from the EMEA region. You can see it all on screen, just pause it. And then we have 1 team coming in from Masters 3, so that makes 12. What about the last 4? Well, this is where the last chance qualifiers come in. Again, let's go back to the simulated leaderboard that we had. So Sentinels and 100 Thieves actually, qualify for the event because they have the most points in the region. They're through. They don't need to do anything else. They just got to prep for that December event. For the teams below it, your Gen Gs, your Exets, what are they meant to do? Well, all of these teams that are currently in red, from 3rd to 10th, I think, in North America. Of course, it varies on each of the regions, but again, you know, NA is the main region to highlight right now, I think, at least. These teams will be put into another qualifier, and whoever wins that event out of those teams left will also qualify for champions. And these are mainly broken down into 4 regions because there's 4 slots left. So North America will have 1 team come through their last chance qualifiers. The EMEA region will have 1. Southeast Asia, which includes Korea and Japan, Southeast Asia, all that stuff, will have 1 team come through. And then South America, Brazil, LATAM North, LATAM South, those kind of things. It does get a bit more complicated because it includes oceanic teams in North America, Middle East and North African teams in Europe, even like East Asian teams, which I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't quite know what countries that constitutes as that isn't part of Southeast Asia, but in any case, other regions kind of get involved in that. So we could see like a Middle Eastern team come through and actually make their way through to champions because their circuit wasn't set up in time, I think is the general answer. I don't know, don't shoot the messenger, but I again don't want to get into the complicated side of that, at least yet, maybe when we get closer to that time. So I hope all of this makes sense. This hopefully isn't too long of a video, but the TLDR is at the end of the year, we have this amazing event that's probably going to have a huge prize pool. The Worlds of Valorant, 16 teams from all around the world will be attending, 11 of which will be the teams that have the most circuit points in their region. Circuit points will be earned from events that we've had previously, but also events that we're playing for right now, which include Iceland, Reykjavik, which is Masters 2. And also, there are a couple of opportunities in case teams miss the mark with the points that they need, or they could just do really well in Masters 3, win that, and they've booked their spot in. That's the bare bones approach, but even that could be pretty complicated to explain. If you do have any other questions of areas that I haven't highlighted, please let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And yeah, if you want to keep updating on the scene, I'll try and do updates on what's happening in North America, where teams are currently. The EMEA region is also pretty interesting with CIS and Turkey. There's plenty to watch and talk about when it comes to Valorant esports, so I hope that this has provided a bit of insight and you now understand the scene a little bit better. As somebody that was really interested in the world scene, I couldn't find any website or any like video that explained the format to me, and it made it very difficult to try and follow what was happening. So I hope that this video helps in that fashion. If it hasn't, again, please let me know in the comments below, and I'm gonna go to bed. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.